The cameras flash like lightning against the darkened theater. On stage, a figure stands silhouetted against the spotlight, voice soaring with raw, unfiltered emotion. This is Demi Lovato at her peak, commanding thousands with a single note. Yet behind those powerful vocals lies a story of survival that few truly understand. The woman who would become one of pop's most vulnerable voices began her journey not in the glittering halls of Hollywood, but in the dusty suburbs of Dallas, Texas, where dreams seemed as distant as the horizon. Demetria Devon Lovato entered the world on August 20th, 1992, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, born into a family where music pulsed through their very veins. Her father, Patrick Martin Lovato, was both an engineer and musician, while her mother, Diana Lee Hart, had danced as a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. The young girl who would simply be known as Demi inherited her father's musical soul and her mother's performing spirit, yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect family portrait, cracks were already beginning to form. Patrick's struggles with addiction and bipolar disorder cast long shadows across the household. Diana, barely 20 when Demi was born, found herself raising two daughters largely alone as Patrick's demons consumed him. The family dynamic was one of constant tension, love intertwined with chaos, stability shattered by unpredictable storms. Demi would later reflect that she learned early to navigate emotional turbulence, developing an internal radar for when the calm might suddenly break into crisis. In those formative years in Dallas, where the family eventually settled, Demi discovered her escape in performance. She was the child who commanded attention at family gatherings, the one who turned living room sofas into concert stages. Her voice, even as a young girl, possessed an otherworldly quality that seemed to channel emotions too complex for her age. Family friends would pause mid-conversation when she sang, struck by the haunting maturity that lived within those childhood melodies. The stage beckoned early. At 7 years old, Demi began appearing in local theater productions, her natural charisma impossible to ignore. Piano lessons followed, then voice coaching, her mother recognizing that this wasn't merely a phase but a calling. Yet even as young Demi flourished in the spotlight, she struggled in the harsher fluorescent world of school hallways. The same sensitivity that made her performances so magnetic also made her a target for childhood cruelty. Bullying became Demi's daily nightmare. She was too different, too intense, too much for her peers to understand. The girl who could move audiences to tears found herself eating lunch alone, enduring whispered taunts about her appearance, her weight, her fierce determination to succeed. These experiences carved deep wounds into her developing psyche, wounds that would influence every relationship, every career decision, every personal struggle that followed. At 10 years old, something shifted within Demi's relationship with her own body and mind. The bullying had taught her that her worth was constantly under scrutiny, and she began to internalize those harsh judgments. Food became both comfort and enemy, control and chaos. The early seeds of eating disorders took root in fertile soil of adolescent insecurity, watered by the impossible standards of an image-obsessed culture. Her parents' marriage finally crumbled when Demi was 13. The divorce, though perhaps inevitable, shattered any remaining sense of stability. Patrick's battle with his own demons meant his presence in Demi's life became increasingly sporadic, leaving her with abandonment wounds that would echo through every future relationship. Yet paradoxically, this loss also freed her to pursue her dreams more aggressively, as if success might somehow fill the void left by her father's absence. The Disney Channel became Demi's golden ticket to a different life. Her breakout role came in 2007 with As the Bell Rings, but it was Camp Rock in 2008 that truly launched her into the stratosphere of teen stardom. Starring alongside the Jonas Brothers, Demi's powerful vocals and magnetic screen presence made her an instant sensation. Her character, Michi Torres, the girl with the voice that could stop hearts, seemed like a perfect mirror of Demi's own ascent from small-town dreamer to Hollywood star. Behind the cameras, however, the pressure was mounting. Disney's squeaky clean image demanded perfection from its young stars, while Demi was privately battling demons that seemed to multiply with each passing success. Her fellow cast members would later remember a young woman who could light up any room, but who seemed to carry an inexplicable sadness in her eyes between takes. Music executive Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty, encountered Demi during this period and would later observe, "She had something that couldn't be taught. Raw talent, yes, but also this vulnerability that made you want to protect her and root for her at the same time." This combination of strength and fragility would become Demi's trademark, both her greatest asset and her most dangerous liability. Her 2008 debut album, Don't Forget, marked her transition from Disney star to legitimate musical artist, becoming the first of 6 consecutive albums to crack the top 5 on the Billboard 200. The success was intoxicating, yet it came with a price tag measured not in dollars, but in psychological warfare. Every magazine cover, every red carpet appearance, every performance was scrutinized through microscopes of public judgment. The romantic entanglements began early and intensely. Her relationship with Joe Jonas became tabloid gold, 2 young stars navigating love under the harsh glare of paparazzi flashbulbs. Yet even this seemingly fairy tale romance was complicated by Demi's growing internal struggles. Friends from that era would later describe a young woman who craved love desperately, but seemed incapable of believing she deserved it. When that relationship ended, Demi threw herself even deeper into her work and her darkness. The eating disorders that had begun in childhood now consumed her daily life. She would later reveal that she was cutting herself, using physical pain as a way to manage emotional anguish that seemed too vast to contain. The girl who brought joy to millions of fans was slowly disappearing into her own shadow. The breaking point came in 2010. During a flight with her tour group, something inside Demi snapped. The official story spoke of exhaustion and dehydration, but those closest to her knew the truth was far more complex. She had punched backup dancer Alex Welch, an incident that revealed just how far she had spiraled into darkness. The facade of the perfect pop princess finally crumbled, and with it came both terror and strange relief. Treatment became Demi's lifeline. At Timberline Knolls, a residential facility in Illinois, she began the painstaking work of rebuilding herself from the ground up. For the first time in years, she was away from cameras, away from expectations, away from the relentless pressure to be anyone other than exactly who she was. The diagnosis came like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Bipolar disorder, ADHD, bulimia, and self-harm behaviors. She wasn't broken. She was battling conditions that had names, treatments, hope. Her return to the public eye was tentative but triumphant. The documentary, Demi Lovato, Stay Strong, revealed her journey with unflinching honesty, showing a young woman who had looked death in the eye and chosen to live. Her music evolved, becoming rawer, more authentic. Songs like Skyscraper weren't just pop anthems, they were survival hymns, testimonies of someone who had climbed out of hell and lived to sing about it. The years that followed brought both triumph and recurring struggles. Demi's advocacy for mental health awareness made her a voice for millions who suffered in silence. She spoke at conferences, partnered with organizations, used her platform to normalize conversations about therapy, medication, and recovery. Yet privately, she was still fighting battles that the public couldn't see. Her romantic life continued to play out in headlines. Relationships with actors and musicians came and went, each one carrying the weight of her fears about abandonment and worthiness. She dated Wilmer Valderrama for 6 years, a relationship that brought stability but also highlighted her ongoing struggles with self-acceptance. When that relationship ended in 2016, those close to her worried about her emotional state. The music industry provided both salvation and temptation. Albums like Confident and Tell Me You Love Me showcased artistic growth and emotional maturity. Yet the pressures of touring, promoting, and maintaining relevance in an increasingly crowded pop landscape took their toll. Demi would later admit that she had never truly felt comfortable with sustained sobriety, that the all-or-nothing approach to recovery felt too restrictive for her reality. Then came July 24, 2018, a date that would forever divide Demi's life into before and after. In her Hollywood Hills home, she made a decision that nearly cost her everything. The fentanyl-laced opioids that she consumed that night were meant to numb pain that had become unbearable. But instead, they brought her to the edge of death itself. Her assistant found her unconscious, blue-lipped, and barely breathing. Paramedics rushed to the scene, administering Narcan to reverse the overdose. She was taken to an intensive care unit and revived with the medication that saves lives from opioid poisoning. For hours, her survival hung in the balance as doctors fought to stabilize her vital signs. The aftermath was devastating in ways that went beyond physical recovery. Demi would later reveal the permanent consequences: vision impairment and hearing damage that serve as daily reminders of how close she came to losing everything. The blind spots in her vision meant she could no longer drive, a seemingly small loss that represented a much larger erosion of independence and normalcy. But perhaps more haunting than the physical damage was the emotional reckoning. In her 2021 documentary, Dancing with the Devil, Demi revealed the full scope of that night's horror. She spoke of being sexually assaulted by her drug dealer, saying, "I was literally left for dead after he took advantage of me." The overdose wasn't just about substance abuse. It was about trauma, betrayal, and a system of enablers who prioritized profit over her well-being. The recovery that followed was unlike anything she had experienced before. This time, there was no rushed return to the spotlight, no pressure to immediately prove that she was fine. Instead, there was the slow, methodical work of rebuilding not just her sobriety, but her entire relationship with herself, her career, and her future. Her family rallied around her with an intensity born of nearly losing her forever. Her mother, Deanna, who had struggled with her own demons, became a fierce advocate for her daughter's recovery. Her sisters provided the unconditional love that Demi had always craved but struggled to accept. Even her relationship with her late father, who had passed away in 2013, took on new meaning as she recognized the genetic and psychological patterns that had shaped both their struggles. The music that emerged from this period reflected an artist reborn. Her 2021 album, Dancing with the Devil, The Art of Starting Over, was her most vulnerable work yet, each song a chapter in her survival story. Critics noted a new depth in her voice, a gravitas that could only come from someone who had literally died and returned to tell the tale. By 2024, Demi was describing her newest musical direction as completely transformed, noting, "I've spent a year exploring with my sound," and revealing she was writing nothing but love songs and sexy songs because I'm in this really good place. This evolution represented more than just artistic growth. It was evidence of internal healing that few thought possible after the devastation of 2018. Her personal life found new stability as well. Her engagement to musician Jordan "Jutes" Lutz brought a different kind of love into her life, one built on mutual understanding of both artistic passion and personal struggle. Unlike her previous relationships, this one seemed grounded in acceptance rather than the need to fix or be fixed. The public's relationship with Demi also evolved. No longer was she simply a pop star who happened to struggle with mental health. She had become something more complex and valuable, a survivor whose authenticity gave others permission to embrace their own imperfections. Her openness about using both she, her, and they, them pronouns reflected a deeper journey of self-acceptance that resonated with countless fans navigating their own identity questions. Her role as a noted philanthropist and activist passionate about raising awareness for mental health issues became not just a side project but a core component of her identity. Speaking engagements, partnerships with treatment centers, and her continued advocacy work demonstrated that her near-death experience had crystallized her life's purpose in ways that fame alone never could. The woman who stands before audiences today carries scars both visible and invisible. The blind spots in her vision serve as constant reminders of how fragile life can be, how quickly everything can change. Yet these same impairments have somehow sharpened her other senses, her emotional intelligence, her empathy, her ability to connect with others who are fighting their own internal wars. When Demi performs now, there's a different energy in the room. The desperation that once fueled her performances has been replaced by something more sustainable: purpose. Her voice, always powerful, now carries the weight of genuine wisdom. She has looked into the abyss and chosen repeatedly to turn away, to fight for life, to believe that tomorrow might be different than today. Her legacy is still being written, but already it's clear that her story transcends typical celebrity narratives. She has become a bridge between the entertainment world and the mental health community, proof that success and struggle can coexist, that vulnerability can be strength, that survival is possible even when it seems impossible. The young girl from Dallas who once ate lunch alone in school cafeterias has grown into a woman whose very existence offers hope to millions. She has shown that recovery isn't a destination, but a daily choice, that healing happens in spirals rather than straight lines, that it's possible to transform pain into purpose without erasing the scars that make us human. In quiet moments, away from the cameras and the crowds, Demi sometimes reflects on the journey that brought her here. The path has been brutal, marked by losses that seemed insurmountable and victories that felt hollow. Yet somehow, in surviving it all, she has discovered something that eluded her for most of her life: the radical acceptance of herself exactly as she is. The story of Demi Lovato is far from over. Each day brings new challenges, new opportunities to choose healing over harm, connection over isolation, truth over the comfortable lies that once nearly destroyed her. She has learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up every time you do, about reaching back to help others who are still on the ground, about using your voice not just to entertain, but to advocate for those who haven't yet found their own. As the lights dim and the applause fades, as the crowds disperse and the venues empty, Demi returns to the most important stage of all, her own life, where the real performance is simply showing up, day after day, as authentically and courageously as possible. In a world that often demands perfection, she has chosen instead to offer something far more valuable: the messy, beautiful truth of what it means to be human, to struggle, to survive, and ultimately, to thrive. The girl who once believed she wasn't worthy of love has become a woman who knows that her worth isn't determined by her achievements or her failures, but by her unwavering commitment to keep fighting, keep growing, and keep singing, not because she has to, but because she has chosen to live a life that matters, scars and all,